you'd be surprised to find that, especially in the consumer industry, they're actually thinking about these fractional and interim executives even before they consider FTEs in certain key roles, because it's allowing them to get access to talent that they don't normally and can't normally afford on a permanent basis through a contract arrangement, a part-time arrangement.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, powered by MRI Network, where each week we talk with the world's top talent strategists and executive recruiters. If you want to build talented teams that drive your company to big goals and big growth, then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Holt with Talent Hunters, and today we are privileged to have Andre Rodriguez, the Managing Director and President of ACE Talent Curators, in Delray Beach, Florida, with us. 18 years of recruiting, the last 5.5, Andre, of leading ACE Talent Curators. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Vince. Very excited to spend some time with you today and kind of take you through the journey of how we got here and what we're up to now.
Wonderful. Well, let's get this thing started. Why don't you tell us a bit about your background and really what led you to where you are today?
My background is I had a degree in accounting straight out of undergrad and quickly realized that was not my strong suit. So numbers, while I enjoy learning about them, I did not enjoy living in them day to day, especially the spreadsheets part. Quickly figured out that social interaction was kind of essential to my fulfillment. And of course, that was spotted by a recruiting firm that quickly jumped on the opportunity to hire a young accountant as a recruiter because I understood their space and yet I preferred to sell. So that's how we got here. I spent 5 years initially recruiting locally in the South Florida market for accounting and finance across multiple industries and verticals of accounting and finance. That led me ultimately to an opportunity in a completely different dig, but with a very cool global firm out of the UK that had a business here in South Florida serving the offshore oil and gas industry and energy industries. Huge learning experience there, opportunity to get away from accounting and finance and also get out of South Florida, which presented its own learnings, as you can imagine, right? So I was doing business in Louisiana and Chicago and the Pac Northwest, Canada, Brazil, China. So all these places where the energy industry and the offshore industry had a presence, Houston obviously being a major hub. So great learning opportunity there. But ultimately I was looking for the opportunity to break into retained search, which led me to Protus Global. Protus at the time was looking to take up office space in Miami and build a team locally here. That's where I'm sitting today. Technically sitting in Delray Beach, but living in Miami. And I joined Protus Global, Burt Miller's organization at that point. Worked closely with Mike Bitar and Vern Davis over 4.5 years' time, leading fulfillment, Vince, which at that time meant all of our research, recruiting, the teams that support those functions. And proud to say that during my time with Protus, we had 4 record revenue years in a row, back to back. So it was a pretty exhilarating time and a lot of learning and learning that ultimately led to a goal that I had looked to accomplish for a long time, which was to launch my own firm and kind of move in an entrepreneurial direction. And Burt Miller specifically afforded me that opportunity. I presented the idea of launching ACE Talent Curators in late 18 at this point. And March 1st of 19, we went live. And the real differentiation there between ACE and Protus is that we serve the same industries and we serve the same functions, but ACE is purely focused on the contract side of the industry. So we work with interim executives, fractional executives, skilled contractors, providing a sort of one-stop solution for our clients in everything that is skilled roles, their corporate roles, and helping them navigate, projects, periods of uncertainty, for startups, helping them access really talented executives on a fractional basis. So just really an ecosystem around the contingent workforce.
Boy, what an experience you've had in such a short period of time. I mean, 18 years sounds a lot to a lot of people, but what you've done to be with a few different companies, to focus around perm placement, contract, to go into these different directions, I mean, it's been a constant education for you.
Yeah, no, that's probably been the most fulfilling aspect of it, Vince, is the constant learning curve, and never a dull moment.
Well, you've been blessed to really have some strong role model mentor type figures. I mean, Michael Bitar sits in a chair beyond where I could ever dream of getting to. So what a lucky career path you've had so far. So
absolutely.
What distinguish your organization, before we dig into you, distinguish ACT, what makes you different than all the other contract staffing businesses out there?
That's a great question, Ben. So the other contract staffing firms and the industry in general has always been sort of functionally leaning, and so and also quite local, right? So oftentimes if companies are looking for contract staffing support, they're thinking about, I need an accountant, I need maybe a marketing person, HR, right? These are functions where contracts always played a pretty significant role, IT, obviously, and they're typically leaning into local firms that specialize in these functions, right? Though firms that specialize in IT or specialize in finance. And what they really sort of lack, though, is the understanding of the industries that their clients play in. Right. So what is their journey of growth? What are they trying to accomplish through their various distribution channels? What are their route to market? What are their target consumers? How do they sell? How do they market? What are their supply chain challenges? So what we bring that's quite different from our competition is that deep understanding of our clients' businesses, specifically in consumer packaged goods. So we work with consumables companies primarily, and these companies are in the food space, the beverage space, the adult beverage space, the cannabis space. And we have, because of our roots in Produce Global, because of my time selling and fulfilling those search services over the years, a very deep understanding of both of how these businesses work and how their functions work. So we become a pretty strategic partner in helping these companies then layer on a contingent workforce strategy and figure out how they can access contractors and consultants in a way that makes the most sense for their business, depending on the life cycle and depending on their strategies that they're sort of trying to accomplish.
So my background's been 100% perm placement. How do you go about starting a relationship in the contract business? Because we're marketing a candidate, obviously, to permanently place. How do you establish that first contact? What details do you go into?
Yeah, sure thing, Ben. So, marketing a candidate is not exclusive to the permanent world. We do the same thing on the contract side, but we'll market consultants, right? And we'll say, hey, we've got someone that's immediately available to jump in. They've just rolled off a successful contract with another client. They just helped one of our clients get through an FSQR audit after their director of food safety suddenly resigned. And we're reaching out to tell you more about, how this person can help you do the same if you're experiencing similar challenges, right? And so, we use the MPC method, no doubt. Another way, and I'd be it would be shameful for me to not bring it up, but Protus is a huge marketing partner to our business, right? So their sales team is an extension of ACE and vice versa. There's a lot of cross selling, so any opportunity that those guys are in front of CPG clients and talking about our broader talent offering, they're including ACE in the conversation. They're talking about how we can not only help with permanent positions at Protus, but we also have a sister company, ACE. We sit in the same building. We share a lot of the same resources, and ACE can sort of come in and help with any contract or consulting needs that business might have. When I'm approaching now, there's different customers in different life stages, right? So when I'm approaching startups and early stage brands, you'd be surprised to find that, especially in the consumer industry, they're actually thinking about these fractional and interim executives even before they consider FTEs in certain key roles, because it's allowing them to get access to talent that they don't normally and can't normally afford on a permanent basis through a contract arrangement, a part-time arrangement. So we'll come to those firms and say, hey, we're equipped. We have talent on the bench that can help you develop a route to market, that can help you develop a supply chain, that can help position your business strategically to win with the consumers that you're targeting. So it becomes a partner that's an extension of their business that can help them through their life cycle with resources that they don't normally get access to on a permanent basis.
So you've got a pretty good bench, you say, as far as people in the CPG arena. It's been my understanding that the contract business is a very short period of opening possibilities. Is this correct? In other words, if I have an opening today, how long does it take to fill that opening before they're going elsewhere?
Yeah, no, it's a great point that you're making, Vince. And so it really varies on the role, right? And what's needed. So there are certain functions and certain positions where, the turnaround time could be 48 hours for sure, 24, 48 hours. That said, we also sometimes call what we do a blend of search and contract, because sometimes they come to us and they really want a needle in a haystack. They want a specific skill set, still want it on contract, right? And so we make it clear up front that, by going contract, they are limiting the pool of available candidates to them, but that they're in the right hands with us because we know how to go after that pool of people and we know how to market this opportunity to them in a way that's attractive. Right. So there, to kind of put a bow on this, our search times go anywhere from 3 hours. Sometimes it could be that someone reaches out and says, I need a fractional CFO, and something we do quite a bit of. So we usually have 3 or 4 great ones on the bench. We can just pick up the phone, give them a call and find out if they want to talk to this client, to typically no more than, 5 to 10 business days for something that's a little harder to find, more of that needle in the haystack.
So for the benefit of those potential clients that are out there, it sincerely is a broad industry, CPG, but where is your niche? If I call you today with a need in that industry, tell me what categories are you going to absolutely be able to dig in and hit me right across the eyes now?
Yes. So for us, anything that touches beverage, either non-alcoholic beverage or alcoholic beverage, has always been a core competency and really cross-functionally. I mean, we have marketers in those categories. We have sales people. We have finance people. We have HR people really across the board in beverage. And then secondary to that, but, only because beverage is the bigger percentage of our client base, is anything consumable. So snacks, food, baked goods, big part of our business for years. We worked with Hostess Brands for years and years before their acquisition by J.M. Smucker recently. So yes, food, snacks, and cannabis as well. So essentially anything in CPG that is consumed, we have quite a bit of depth. Any product that's sold either through the retail channel or direct to consumer, we have a pretty good understanding of how those businesses operate, and likely a bench of contractors or consultants that have experience in those categories.
So let's flip the page now towards the candidates, because obviously to have a bench, you've got to have some very reliable, valuable people that you can reach out to. Why should a candidate contact you today?
This is actually a really fun topic for us, Vince, because this is the dynamic. This is the one thing that's really changed over the last 5 years that's allowed a business like Ace to thrive and has allowed for companies to access this talent in ways that they couldn't before. And by ways they couldn't before, I mean in a contract scenario. There's a lot of factors. The biggest one being, well, one of them is generational, right? Maybe the biggest is that the most productive segment of our workforce, baby boomers, are now at retirement age or soon to be, if not all, and they don't want to unplug altogether for the most part. Right. They love to work. They love to be productive. They love to contribute to, younger entrepreneurial businesses that can learn from their wisdom. So they're not looking to pull out altogether. They want to keep a leg in. They want to keep a toe in. Right. And we give them the flexibility to do that, whether that's 2 hours a week or whether that's 20 hours a week. Right. So that's one segment of the workforce where we've seen a growth. I mean, think about it, Vince, right? 10 years ago, you couldn't get an SVP of one of these major CPG companies to consider a contract. And now there's a huge segment of the economy that is just that, former, equity holders and C-suite executives who are either at the brink of retirement, have already announced their retirement date, but don't want to stop working, right? So that's one segment of what we do. Another that's really interesting coming out of COVID is just this growing group of people that have realized that they love to work remotely, which, by the way, companies are usually more comfortable with on a contract basis. Those same people and others who are entrepreneurial. And so that blend of flexibility and a desire to do something entrepreneurial is actually a big driver for people that are in their mid-careers, right? Think about those people that are about 20 years in, have an exceptional skill set, understand how to get things done quickly. And they're leveraging those skill sets to essentially make their skill their product. Right. So they're going to the market. They've got multiple clients. And what we offer is a sales and marketing arm for them of sorts. Right. We're out there. We're marketing their profiles. We're NPCing them. We're trying to keep them busy and allow them to pursue this more flexible lifestyle through contract work. So really, we just create and a lot of CPG is an industry that's very fast moving, just like the products in it. And there's a lot of startups. There's a lot of early stage companies. There's a lot of folks that go in to help a company do something special in 2 to 3 years time, either to drive them to exit or maybe to shut down because they realize the economics don't work in what they're trying to do. So those highly capable people are oftentimes between roles and they're open to this kind of contract work. So it's a very dynamic industry, and we're providing another avenue for them to generate revenue and to make an impact on their industry.
So I've heard a lot of people talk about, COVID hurt us here, COVID hurt us there. And, it's all forgive me, the whining of not being as successful as you were. But what I want to hear, because I love your whole mentality of building this business, COVID helped you, didn't it?
It did.
So give us an example of really how it helped the contract side of the business.
So we'll start with remote work. COVID was a test, right? In, can remote work be successful and productive for organizations? And we learned that for certain functions and for certain personalities, it wasn't, and that's fair. But we also learned that probably more so for the right personalities and the right functions, it did work, right? Companies could really get things done through remote workers, that they did not need people sitting in the office. Now, whether they wanted people in the office because of the effects that created on their culture, on team building, on spontaneous meetings, those are all wonderful things to desire. And companies should still have those, and they should mandate that certain roles be back in the office so they can create that again. But that doesn't mean that every role has to be back in the office. So when you go full circle, what COVID showed us was there are certain functions that can absolutely live in a remote environment, much like the IT and tech industry has for years, right? So they were the first test of this. And then to some extent, salespeople, right? I mean, you think about field salespeople who've never been in the office. But then we start to figure out, wow, finance people, they can do that too. Marketing people, maybe, right? And so human resources people, if they're not, if they don't need to be in the building, if they're not plant HR, if it's HR business partnership and they're supporting a sales team that's out on the field, do we really need them in the office? Right. So, and that's what COVID did, is that it provided a testing ground of sorts for what can be done remotely and what can't. So how does that benefit the contingent workforce? Once companies started to require RTO again, return to office, they started to realize, well, you know what, if we want to have, or if certain people desire to be remote, maybe we can have them work on contract remotely. That's a flexible option that we're willing to consider for our remote workers. So that was one thing that sort of indirectly impacted what we do. The most obvious one was risk to these businesses, right? So COVID presented risk in a number of ways. And in any high risk environment where people feel like there's a high level of uncertainty, you're going to lean on the most flexible talent solution available to you. And that is contract, right? You're going to look to hire contingent workers, manage expectations up front that we're not bringing you in for permanent roles, and therefore you're not going to have to lay these people off, right, when things don't go the way you were hoping they would. So that was another catalyst. And there's several of these. Another catalyst was there was an increased amount of retirement that was accelerated, was moved forward, right? So now we have, once again, you go back to the generational edge here, right? You've got a number of really talented recent retirees that may have still been in the workforce if it wasn't for COVID, right? So there's multiple factors that and reasons why COVID ultimately fueled what we're doing and created opportunities that we were not anticipating.
So you've worked a lot in perm placement. You've done a little bit of both. And now you're working in the contract side. How has going to contract changed your qualifying of candidates over the perm? Because I've never done it before, but I got to believe that in order to be able to present contract people, you got to know a little bit more about those people to be able to put your integrity and trust into a client's, not a candidate's as much, but into a client's. So what have you had to change to be able to be more effective in the contract side of the business?
It's a great question, Vincent. So we'll start with our differentiating factor, right? We're CPG specialists, right? So ACE was born of Protus Global. So right out of the gate, we had this network of people with reputations, with visibility, with, an understanding of the industry that we had built relationships with over years, right? And a lot of those people were starting to express interest in what we were doing at ACE right out of the gate. I mean, we started making calls, and there was interest, there was an appetite for it, and we knew we were fishing in the right place, right? And so so that's sort of the just part of our DNA, right? That we're CPG people, we understand our clients' businesses, and therefore we can make quicker and more accurate and more trusted connections, right, between their needs and the people that we're bringing them. Now, when we get into nuts and bolts of how we recruit these people, when we don't know them, when they're not in our network, right? When they're not on our bench, it becomes very much a skills focused conversation versus a holistic conversation, right? So in any perm recruiting process, and I think anyone that's been around Protus before, like you have and Mike Bitar, you probably know that our core tenets are that we need to understand someone's professional, personal, and financial situation in order to fully serve them and the client in making a great match. Well, I like to say that at ACE, we've removed the personal a little bit, right? And it's not that we don't build relationships with these folks. We get to know them. We understand their personal situation a little bit, but we don't have to relocate them. We don't need to know the value of their home. We don't need to know if their kids are willing to relocate. We are focused on what can you do for these companies professionally, financially, from an impact standpoint. So we spent a lot of time on making the right skills match, more so than all of the challenges that come with actually placing someone in a permanent role and impacting their entire life, right? We're impacting sort of a smaller snippet of their life because we're either being added on as another client in their portfolio of clients, or, so the relationship becomes much more, broker agent, right? Than a complete lifestyle reboot that you experience on the perm side, which allows us to go deeper on, skills and fit and ultimately that piece. So a lot less depth on the personal side.
So that brings up another bit of questioning from the standpoint of, on one hand, I've got a bench. And in order to have a bench, you've got to have candidates that trust you immensely. On the other hand, you say we don't get as deep personally, and I'm not questioning this at all. I understood what you were saying, but I want to understand a little bit better because I think it would be valuable to everybody in the recruiting businesses. So how do you gain the trust of a candidate when you're not as concerned about relocating the family and all that stuff? I want to understand, where do you take the questioning to earn the trust that the candidate's willing to be on the bench to work with you and not every other contract recruiter out there?
Sure. So it's the validation of really our connections and our relationships in the industry, and the fact that we're bringing them, the opportunities that they're looking for. They see our depth online. They see our marketing that's going out. They see that we're connected to the people that they want to speak with. Our business is very visible, right? It lives socially. We make it a point to spend time on, podcasts, having these types of conversations, putting out video material. So there's a lot of trust built. To me, the purpose of marketing and the purpose of digital content is to build trust before you ever get on the phone with someone. So when they get on, they can already say, hey, I've seen where you've been. I know the Protus leadership. I understand that you used to work with, Pabst Brewing Company or Hostess Brands or Ferrero Rocher. I know so-and-so who knows you well, and he says you placed him in an executive leadership role 5 years ago, and he loved working with you. So there's sort of an ecosystem that we've built in the consumer space, and we're just getting started. So that's what we've done, is sort of create a network of people and friends. And when I say I don't know them personally, it doesn't mean I don't know who their wives are, or if they have children, or if their kids play sports. It means that I don't have to spend as much time going into the details of their equity package and what they walk away from if they resign from this role, or what they sacrifice if they sell their home and move to a community where homes cost twice as much. Which, if Vin, you've been in this industry, that's half of the recruiting process, right? So we cut all that out because we don't need to spend time on those things in order to introduce them to someone that's going to give them 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a week of work to sort of incorporate into either their portfolio, or in some cases what we call the moonlighters, right? There are folks that work full time but are still supporting some of these clients on their downtime, on the weekends and evenings.
So being in this business for 18 years and climbing through to gain more responsibility in your career and finally owning your own operation, what advice would you give to you 7 years ago?
I would say to be as authentic as possible, to work hard. That hard work is often masked in the things we don't want to do and don't desire to do. And I would say to attack the hard work, but to also pull on the leverage that is available to you, creating a public persona, building credibility in the media world, getting comfortable in front of cameras, getting comfortable writing posts and creating content. So pair the hard work that you could never get around, picking up the phones, talking to people, and making things happen every day, with the high leverage activities that will help you build a personal brand in the long run.
And I think you should always add one last thing, because you started your business literally just before one of the biggest travesties this country's ever been through with COVID. Mm-hmm. Giving Absolutely. Up is not an option.
That's never
Dig the
is.
heels in and
Never
drive.
Is.
And
great point,
you've
Vince.
done a fabulous job, Andre. You really have. I love your passion. Your passion comes from this self-confidence that just exudes out of you. And
thank you, Vince.
Really appreciate your time on this podcast, because it shares.
Absolutely.
Look, there's people out there that are happy being a recruiter, just doing the recruiting. They love it. The rewards are phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But there's people out there that want to continue learning. And the only way to continue learning is by accepting new challenges. And accepting new challenges is changing industries. Oh my God. I started in the electronic connector industry 38 and a half years ago. And I've dabbled in little things to make sure that the MRI way, right, was the pure system that works. So I've placed people in cheese factories. I've placed people in hospitality. The beauty is stay true to what you're taught and never give up. Anything you'd like to share with any clients or candidates that might be viewing this as a final thought?
That's a great question. So I would say to our clients and our candidates is that we may have bad days and we may make mistakes, but I want them to have the full confidence that we are always vested in their growth and in the betterment of their personal situation or their company situation. We will always put what is good for them above our profits, above the placement. We want to help companies grow, and we think we have a great vehicle to do that. But in the to the extent that we think that we are not the best solution to help them grow, we will always let them know that. We will never just take the placement to make a quick buck. We will always have their best interest in mind.
Congratulations on your commitment to success and commitment to satisfaction. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you.